Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 24th of August, year 2022. I hope everyone is having a fantastic time. I know some parents have their kids going back to school in some locations here in the US. So wishing all the students a really successful school year. And let me get started with introducing our panel. Today we have Patricia here. Good evening, Patricia and Francesca, who are part of our core group of meditators. Good evening. And then Kimberly has joined us with a question. Kimberly, you want to ask a question, and then I'll go tag everyone so that they can join the Facebook Live. Okay, thank you.
My question starts off with Edgar writes, the more consciousness you direct into your inner body, the higher its vibrational frequency becomes. Much like a light that grows brighter as you turn up the dimmer switch and so increase the flow of electricity, as this higher energy level, negativity cannot affect you anymore, and you tend to attract new circumstances that reflect this higher frequency. I am learning to increase my auric frequency energy field to heal myself. As an empath and clairsentient, I can literally see and feel when negativity of someone else's ego takes over them. I try to avoid toxic people since they seem to try to siphon my joy out of me like a psychic vampire and leave me drained. This does cause problems for me in my friendships and potential romantic relationships. Would you please ask the panel how I can learn to use my higher frequency ability to build up my friendships and maybe one day meet a high quality man?
Good evening, April. Thank you so much for joining. I don't know if you heard Kimberly's question. You may have to repeat because April just joined Kimberly. Apologize about that. You may have to repeat your question. Kimberly is the one that's asking the question, and if you can answer it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear all of it.
Thank you.
Did you want me to read the whole thing over again?
Yes, please. Sorry about that.
Eckert writes, the more consciousness you direct into the inner body, the higher its vibrational frequency becomes. Much like a light that grows brighter as you turn up the dimmer switch and so increase the flow of electricity. At this higher energy level, negativity cannot affect you anymore, and you tend to attract new circumstances that reflect this higher frequency. I am learning to increase my auric frequency energy field to heal myself. As an empath and clairsentient, I could literally see and feel when negativity of someone else's ego takes over them. I try to avoid toxic people since they seem to try to siphon my joy out of me like a psychic vampire and leave me drained. This does cause problems for me in my friendships and potential romantic relationships. Would you please ask the panel how I can learn to use my higher frequency ability to build up my friendships and maybe one day meet a high quality man?
Okay. So you're definitely on the right path. One, because you're here. Two, you're listening to Eckhart. So definitely on the right path. So the more consciousness you direct into the inner body, the higher vibrational the frequency becomes. That is true. And that is the goal. It's actually kind of an automatic thing that happens when you start on this path, because most of us start on this path because we are at a low space. We are at a space where we have had, most of us, some suffering, and we've had it for a long time. And we're looking for peace. We're looking for happiness. We're searching, we're seeking. So this is where sometimes even I have had this idea that, well, because I still have questions, I haven't arrived. Because I still have questions, then maybe I'm not at guru status, right? I don't have all the enlightenment yet. But the fact that I'm asking questions, or I still have questions, or I still have things to work on, actually is perfect. Because if I didn't have the questions, I wouldn't be seeking, there wouldn't be any room for growth. Right? So that's the first part, is that the fact that you're on this journey and that you still have questions and you're like, hey, I'm trying to figure this out. It's perfectly in line with the growth process, right? So it is much like a dimmer switch, because the more that you practice, the more that you learn, the more you use what Poonam often refers to as presence power, consciousness, present power. The more you use that, your energy will increase. And your vibration will increase. And I don't want to use the word increase, because so you are vibrating at a different level, but I don't want to use the word increase, because sometimes people think increase means higher, faster, but really it's a more peaceful state. So in a sense, it is at a higher vibration or a higher level, because it's not third dimension, it's a higher dimension. However, it's a more peaceful dimension, right? So because when we start using the word frequency and vibration, like this is a really good Kelly question, or Kelly and Kelly, it gets confusing, because then we're like, well, wait a minute, I'm searching internal peace and happiness, but I got to vibrate more. So we get kind of confused. However, raising your frequency is changing your perceptions. Changing your perceptions means I'm seeing things from a different dimension. Okay. So third dimension, we have 3D. We have the Trinity. We see things 3 ways. Fourth dimension, we're adding another layer. Fifth dimension, I'm seeing things more from different angles, different ways. I'm seeing all, and I'm understanding all. So I wanted to kind of clear that up too. So it's a higher energy level in a sense, but it's not like a wiry energy. It's a calmer energy. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So when you are an empath, when you are psychic, when you're clairvoyant, when you're on this journey and you start to notice other people's energy, also when you start to notice other people's ego, you will develop the ability to feel what others are feeling. So if you already have that ability and then you're on this journey, it's like double. You will be able to sense other people's energy. That's part of the trick behind Eckhart teaching you to notice the ego in others. Part of the trick that he's now mentioning, I noticed in his later videos, but in his earlier videos, is he's sensing the energy of people. He's sensing their aura and they're sensing his. That's why he can talk to them, and he teaches through his presence, and just through his presence, just through his frequency, they're calming down. They're becoming more centered, right? So that is a natural thing that will happen, is you will be able to pick that up more. Now, the siphoning is one of 2 things. One is So there's a lot of people that kind of tend to worry about like negative energies and things like that. And all you really have to do is work on maintaining your frequency, maintaining what you want your energy to be, not worrying about everybody else's energy, but remembering, because you can ward off like negative energy just by maintaining your presence power. So it's like letting the light shine through you, and that will project out and therefore create, in a sense, if you want to call it a shield. It won't be able to get into you. The other thing is it's really important to remember, and this is not always easy to do, but especially if you're doing any type of psychic work, that other people's problems, challenges, it's not that you don't care or have sensitivity, but it is their path. It is their lesson, not yours, so you don't take it on. The other thing you can do is surround yourself with the white light of divine love and protection. Before you go into that space or you go into a room, you can also, I purposely avoid certain things that I know are draining. I do not go to the mall. Is that my thing? If I went to the mall after I left, I would be so exhausted. It just would be insane because of all the energies. So you can do that. But it's really more important to keep yourself focused that your energy is yours and their energy is theirs. And maintain what you want to project out through your body, your aura, through your heart, your presence power. That actually is the better method out of all of them to do. Now, causes problems in friendship, relationships. So a high quality man. So the more that you practice this of maintaining your own energy, which is like, okay, so I'll give you an everyday example. I have somebody in my life who does tend to trigger me. It's like they are a walking button. Literally, it's like a walking button. So what I do then, though, is because I am working on this path, I'm working on eliminating the patterns that are in my life, they're in my path, they're in my family. So I will be conscious, aware of my intention. What's my intention? My intention is I want to practice presence power. I want to practice peace. I want to practice understanding, compassion. I want to feel peace inside. I want to feel happiness. So I keep that in my forefront, and then I let that dictate how the relationship flows. Does this make sense to you? So that's a one thing. And the more that you practice this, the more that you practice that your energy is yours and that is their energy and that's their path. We don't take on other people's energies. It actually will automatically attract that high quality man, that high quality person, the high quality friend. When you change your energy, you will then attract like energy, which, I mean, this is definitely a thing for, Caesar with Abraham Hicks, like he would be. So what I would do is you have to really understand that you can have sympathy for other people, but you have to be able to say, okay, I can care for them, I can understand them, I can have compassion, but it is not my job to take on their energy. You may also do, if you're in a space and you can feel that some energy is being taken, you may also do an energy cleanse or a meditation for it. So that's what I would have to start with. Those are, hopefully all that made sense for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, April. Thank you, Kimberly, for your question. It's an incredible question. April, what I would say is if we are, so since I'm doing so much of Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings, when we say as an empath and clairsentient, I feel when negativity of someone else's ego takes them over, and then I try to avoid toxic people. So it almost is we have a toxic person, but what is it in us that is siphoning the energy? Because our emotional state is dependent on, and that's what we've been talking about last week. We talked about limiting beliefs, right? So beliefs, our thoughts create our emotional field, and how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. So how we think and so what we are thinking and believing and our emotions create a state of being. So if we are experiencing that our energy is being siphoned away, the only way it's going to get siphoned away is we are thinking from a judgment of a past reaction, and we are believing that past reaction, and the emotional field, we are experiencing some kind of guilt, shame, anger. That's what siphons the energy. When we siphon energy, we are stuck in the first three centers. The first center is the center of procreation, right? That's where our reproductive organs are. This second center is where we experience guilt and shame. The third center is where we experience anger. It is also the center of will. So the siphoning of energy, we have to remember, is when we are supposed to have this 3 meter or 4 meter, and Kelly has also talked about it. There's a torus field around us of 3 meters wide, right? So if we are doing what Eckhart is saying, actually inhabiting a body, if we are in that plenum void 90% of the time, then our torus field is 3 meters. There's nothing that's going to siphon it off. Right? We have a 3 meters field of all we are experiencing is the elevated states, which Abraham Hicks, she has 26 emotions, right? She puts like joy, bliss at the top, and the last 26th emotion is probably hatred, and rage. Hatred is the very last emotion. So which part of the scale are you on? Are you on the hatred, rage, or are you on the bliss, gratitude, loving kindness, love, feeling unconditional love? So throughout the day, 90% of the time or 100% of the time, are you on this scale or are you on the hatred scale? So how we think and how we feel creates a state of being, then, and that state of being is from how our energy centers are operating. So what we are experiencing is we are experiencing emotions that are from these three, like either we are experiencing guilt, we are experiencing shame, or we are experiencing frustration and anger, right? Like maybe we had, and that those are emotions of the past that, like an automatic system, right? Our subconscious mind, our body is taking us back into an emotion of the past, that maybe those situations occurred. Maybe we experienced some trauma with toxic people. And so we have in our subconscious field, we have that memory stored. It's already imprinted, right? What does he say? Nerve cells that fire together, wire together, right? So you've been firing and wiring your nerve cells to feel irritation about people that are toxic, firing and wiring, firing and wiring, firing. It happens 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever a person's age is. They've been firing and wiring those nerve cells where they're getting irritated with people that are toxic, firing and wiring, firing and wiring, firing and wiring. So how do we overwrite it? Is to experience, we have to make a choice that no longer am I going to fire and wire that emotion of anger towards toxic people. I'm going to fire and wire emotion of gratitude. Or I'm going to fire and wire this feeling of unlimited genius. I'm going to fire and wire this feeling of being inspired. I'm inspired with life. I love my life. I'm healing myself. I'm doing the celery juice. I'm doing all these things. I'm doing my supplements. I'm going to fire and wire. I feel unlimited, right? So you fire and wire to that top level, what Abraham Hicks says, right? Those 26 emotions, you're firing and wiring. So what happens with that is, because you're firing and wiring, you'll rewrite your neurons and you rewrite that default program that's in your subconscious mind, which feeds the irritation. So no longer are you going to feel irritated about the toxic people that are around you, whether it's coworkers or friends, relatives, whoever it may be. No longer are you going to feel toxic towards your partner, right? Whoever it may be. You're going to accept every human exactly how they are. They don't have to give you love. The love is being generated through you. So one of the things, I'm going to read what he said in one of the progressive sessions. He said, the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that is greater than the hardwired programs in your brain in the past and the emotional addictions in your body in the past. Because what we end up doing is we believe and accept, what he says is we accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are equal to our emotional state. So if we are feeling anger, we are feeling frustration, we're going to believe and accept those kind of thoughts. But you want to believe and accept and surrender to thoughts that are kind, compassionate. So our amplitude of how much gratitude we are feeling in a day has to be much more than how much hatred we are feeling towards another person. Does that make sense, Kimberly? And to this, I would say is, I remember Byron Katie, I think it's in Loving What Is or 1,000 Names for Joy, one of the two books. She says she goes to visit a friend who has a tumor right in her leg. And so the friend removes the tumor, it removes her sheet and says, do you see my leg? It's fat on this side. Like, do you see the tumor? And Byron Katie says, yeah, it's, I don't remember the exact words, but she says, you mean to say this leg should be, before that, she says, yeah, okay. So she does say, you see the difference between my two legs? And Byron Katie says, you mean to say that this leg should be, the right leg, let's say it's on the right leg should be not be the same as the left leg, right? And then the friend says, I love you, Katie. And she says, Byron Katie says, no, until you love your tumor, you're going to apply the same judgment on the doctors. You're going to apply the same judgment. One day you're going to apply the same judgment on me. So you don't really love me right now. So you have to love your tumor. right? It's the same thing. Until we can love all the people that are around us, whether whoever is in politics, whoever is an athlete. I've seen so many people, right, during the pandemic, right? Oh, why don't we give all our nurses and doctors millions of dollars? Why do we give the millions of dollars to athletes? And so even that, you know, why do we give millions of dollars to actors and actresses and athletes? Why do we pay them millions of dollars? So now they're realizing the importance of what doctors and nurses are, right? So even that is negativity. You know, that's every person is doing exactly what they need to be doing where they are at. So until we can love the doctor and nurse exactly where they are, and the athletes exactly where they are, we are going to remain in that judgmental. And the more judgmental we are, the more insecure we feel, the more lack we feel. How are we going to have a partner that's going to feel that we know who we are if you're going to feel insecure because we are judgmental, right? Judgments imply, April, what do you think? Judgments imply insecurity, right?
Judgment supply security? Is that what
Imply,
they imply security?
like I'm coming from a sense of lack and incompleteness, so I'm going to
Oh,
compare myself.
insecurity.
Yeah, insecurity.
Insecurity. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. And we are taught to judge. And I do agree with Joe Dispenza's teaching. Also, I've listened to him for a long time about, you know, if you are going to wake up and every day you repeat the same things, the same thoughts, then your day is going to be the same. So when you go into facing these relationships, again, your conditioned pattern, your wires that are firing together in the brain, your patterns are going to go to do the same thing. But you have to be conscious enough again to say, okay, I am trying to be well, I'm trying to be peaceful, I'm trying to be happy, I'm trying to be whatever. Okay. So my intention here is going to be, so you are going to change the behavior. If you change the behavior long enough, it literally rewires the brain. It's called neuroplasticity. It rewires the brain. And we have judgments because one, we are taught to judge, and it's not all a bad thing, because we need to judge if the glass is too full, if I'm about to pour it all over the floor. I need that, right? So, but we have been taught to judge so much, and just every little nuance, and it is in comparison to what? That's what we judge. In comparison to what? And to what standards? And when you are taught to be that judgmental, it can be a sign of insecurities. It can be a sign of, those are the things that you mostly pick on yourself about. What do you pick on yourself about? And then we're looking out into the world and we're judging and judging and judging, right? Usually we're judging ourselves more than we're judging anybody else. So this takes practice. Just like I said, that person in my life who's like the biggest button, it takes practice for me to not follow the old behavior, the old pattern, to start to behave in a new manner, respond in a new manner, maintain my energy. And nobody has said this is easy. Maintain my energy with my clear intentions of presence power. It does take practice. And the thing that Poonam is hinting to is the same concept of holding the mirror up. If I have toxic people that are around me, why do I have that showing up in my life? Sometimes it's just still part of a lesson that you need to learn, but also when you do get to a certain point in this, like Eckhart has talked about many times, you can be around that toxic person without taking on that energy, because you allow, and like Poonam was saying, you allow them to be, they can be toxic, oh, you want over there. That's awesome. Still send you love. I can see all your toxicity. I'm aware of it. However, it doesn't affect me. I do wish that that was healed in you. So it isn't from a sinister place. I do wish that was healed within you. But however, I'm okay that you're not okay. And I'm okay that I'm okay over here. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person, right? So you learn to allow everybody to be on their path, and just that sense. So this happened with my mother once. I have this friend, talked about her before, Native American friend. And my mother was a person that always tried to get a rise out of people, and always tried to kind of like almost jump into your energy. Well, my friend was coming over because her and I were going to do a healing thing together. We were going to do, that's when we trained for Amadeus, healing energy. And my mom was standing there, and my mom was doing her normal thing. And you could see, I could see, because I can see energy, you know, like my mom was trying to jump in her energy field. And my friend just kind of stood there and was just looked and just observed and just, right. And you could see that my mom's energy was kind of like, what's happening here? I'm not affecting her field. What? So it's because she had practiced long enough the ability to maintain her own energy and to allow that person to be in their space. And that's okay. I can still love you there. Right. So, yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, April. Incredible. Caesar, since you've joined, did you want to, I put the whole question. It's from Kimberly.
Yeah, good question.
Thank you.
So, so I mean, we run into toxic people everywhere we go. At least I do. They're everywhere. But I don't recognize that in them, and I try not to see that portion of them. I used to, and kind of like you hit it on the head about being love. But then April hit it on the head and everything that she said as well. So we don't have to allow that to influence us. Rather, we do the influencing with that person. And I used to shy away from people like that, toxic people, once I knew that I was on this high vibing cloud here. And now I feel that if that person enters my timeline, then there's a connection to be made there for whatever reason. And I feel anymore like it's because one of us needs something from the other by way of teaching. So I always try to approach them type of people. I don't even want to say them type of people, all people with compassion and love. And engaging in conversation with them. And sometimes it's very narcissistic from the other side. I quickly can identify that there's a lot of trauma in this person's life. And just like most people, including us at a time, very unconscious and just set in them ways. And they don't know any better. They don't know about presence power. They don't know about to not judge. They've always viewed everything through the eyes of a victim, or anger or envy. And these are all things that are low vibing fields. And so, yes, we can feel that energy when we walk in the room, and we can identify that in that person. But I also feel like they're there for a reason, especially in front of people like yourselves. April, I know you got clients that are probably, they walk in the door and they're so low vibing. And I'm sure after, a short time with you, you begin to change that. And I'm sure session after session after session, you get people walking straight and narrow and feeling the, on that high flying disc, because you're teaching them. And that is my point. The difference between April's situation and most of our situation is she actually does that for a living. So they come knocking on your door with the paycheck, so to speak. But that doesn't change anything. So when we encounter these people, or these situations, I should say, we should really take the same approach as April does, as if we were giving them a session. And because that's really mostly what we do, is we provide guidance, and a lot of times in listening to somebody's story, I'll get a message out of it for myself, and even given a message. I always have to replay the message. Did you ever find that, April, after you do a reading or whatever? And then afterwards you reflect on it, and then you're like, well, maybe that was for me. Holy cow. So it's pretty cool. But
Yeah, during the session too, there'll be sometimes during the session where I'll be like, is this my message?
I get that a lot too, even just talking to people, and I find that I lose them really quick, whether it's from me or not from me. And I used to just stop talking because, that was the ego in me saying, this person ain't even listening. But I've learned to carry out that message regardless. If there was something on my heart for somebody, I would give it to them, even if they're doing one of these numbers. Just because maybe they're not really listening, they're hearing. And then maybe they'll pick up that seed and allow it to grow at a later time, in their time. And there again, maybe after I deliver a message or some insight, and deep down I know that person didn't hear a word I said, I have to go back and reflect on it, because again, maybe that was for me. So my point is don't ever shy away from toxicity. Practice loving yourself in them situations. It's not, and you also have to figure out, what is the point of attraction? If this is what you keep on attracting everywhere you go, are these toxic people, you have to at some point ask yourself, what is the point of attraction? Why is it always these people, low vibe and toxic people? I could tell you that probably 80% of the planet is that way, unconscious, or you could call them toxic for the most part. So what are you going to do? Avoid 80% of the people on the planet? No, they're there for a reason. They're being placed on your timeline in your life for a reason. April, Kelly would pick this up, but I'm sure April can get all into the soul contracts with you. But I really honestly believe everybody is placed in your life. So don't shy away from them. Of course, you want to protect your vibrational frequency. Stay 3-4 feet away and engage in this with a smile. Start it off with a smile. That's how you start to influence the energy within that other person. You don't have to adapt to their energy. They're going to adapt to yours, because goodness will outweigh the darkness. Light will shine through the darkness. Approach it with gratitude instantly, and that changes everything. It's contagious. The energy is contagious. And then there we'll go back into the three, the energy vampires. Some people you spend 5 minutes with and you feel drained. Some people you spend 5 minutes with and you don't feel like there's no change. It's just a neutral. Okay. And some people you can spend 5 minutes with and just be like, woo, that was awesome. This is the energy that they're talking about. So when you encounter that, choose where you want to be. Like Poonam was saying, just approach it with compassion, excitement. What is this person here to teach me? Or vice versa. If you listen when people talk, really give them 100% of your attention, you will find things that you would have never picked up had you started to allow thought to rush in while they're talking, because that's what happens with most people. You might offer that person some good solid advice. Because if you don't listen fully, you're not being very present. Being present means giving them every ounce of your energy, of your attention. Then when you can offer them some words, perhaps, you might even get a little something back out of your own words. Because there's something there for us always in them situations. And then you ask, maybe one day meet a high quality man. Well, the answer to that question is you must recognize yourself as love first before you can recognize the love in others. You must first recognize that you are love. There's no being in love, falling out of love. You are love. And once you realize that, everybody is love. And that's how you engage every situation, every person. Even in our, the negativity that comes up, they say it doesn't affect. No, it doesn't. It's easy to smile anymore. Of course, there's a time to smile and not smile, because sometimes the ego on the other side gets very angry when you're not giving it what it wants. And that's food. And usually that's by way of, the contrast of love. They want an argument. They expect, they're feeding off negativity, and they're so used to getting negativity right back that when they approach somebody like you and you don't give them that, you give them love and compassion and gratitude for being in their presence. That whole thing starts to change. That's how you change the world, one soul at a time, and it starts with you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Caesar. Gratitude is the top scale, right? When we are experiencing the top emotions. So that's why we do a lot of the blessings of the energy center meditations, Kimberly, in Dr. Joe's work. And it can be hours. I was listening to there's this person that hosts a program called London Wheel, and he's just been to the 7-day retreat for in London with Dr. Joe, and he was saying there's like 5 hours straight of meditations. It can start at 4 a.m. in the morning. 5 hours straight of meditation, and you're doing blessings of the energy center. It's that level of intensity of a retreat, right? So to get to what Eckhart is saying, direct attention into your body and raise your vibrational frequency, it requires hours and hours and hours of that inner body meditation. Like, we are not even experiencing our physical body anymore. Like we are like gone. It's just black void. You're in the void, you're in the unknown, and you're just blessing the energy center from that void. Like, I can't even see, like he says, and go to one. I don't even know where one is, because I've lost sensation of my body. Right? Where is it located? Because you have to go to your reproductive, where your reproductive system is, right? In the pelvic floor, like go in that direction. But you've lost sensation, because the way he does the breath work, right? He pulls the breath, the pineal gland breath. But by the time you're done the breath work and you start the meditation, you've already lost sensation of your body. And you don't even know, when he says go to one, and he's directing to one, where is one? Where is two? Where is three? Where is four? Right? So it's that level of intensity of putting attention into the body. I mean, there are words that Eckhart is using, direct attention into the body, but it is that level of intensity that we don't even experience the physical body. Right? So, and that's what pulls, because our subconscious program is the 3 energy centers, the 3 chakras, right? The lower chakras that are pulling us into these old patterns, the default program that we've written. So And then you're going to use your neocortex and say, no, I see anger towards this person, or I see frustration building up, little irritation starting in my tummy. My gut is not feeling good. I feel that icky feeling in the gut. And no, neocortex, I'm going to dominate it with I'm grateful, like Caesar was saying, right? I'm grateful for this opportunity that is showing me that I still need to work on that feeling. And as you keep doing the meditation, they will come a point in time you won't even, how much ever you say you're an empath, right? Even saying I'm an empath, let go. Eckhart guides somebody during, and that's why I've given you the webcast. Either in lesson 2, 3, or between the first 4 or 5 lessons, there's a person, maybe lesson 3, chapter 3. There is a person that calls in to Oprah and Eckhart and says that she's highly sensitive person, that she's an empath, right? And Eckhart says even that is an identity. You build an identity saying I'm a highly sensitive person. And that's why he says no labeling, don't create a mental construct. Don't even create a mental construct, I'm a woman. Don't even create a mental construct, I'm dark haired, or whatever the mental construct can be, right? Race, color, gender, whatever those identities can be, drop the identities. We are just pure positive energy until we can experience and move around. This pure consciousness woke up and went towards the lemon water. This pure consciousness woke up and went towards the sink to brush their teeth. This pure consciousness woke up and now they're using the toilet, right? And now they are in the shower. This pure consciousness, until we can work as pure consciousness, that this is pure presence power. When we build identities, then we are always going to have this, I'm so and so, and this person is lower or higher than me. We are always going to compare. These toxic people are lower than me. Somebody who is at a higher frequency, April, who can hold our presence power, is higher than me. And we are always constantly comparing. And that's the ego, constant comparison. And we've lived in this, I mean, for 20,000 years, human beings have been doing this comparison, right? There was one more thing that I wanted to say, which came up during our book reading on Sunday. The Don Miguel Ruiz's third agreement was don't make assumptions. And they were asking me, how do you explain this? And what reminded me was Byron Katie had this woman call him, and she was walking her through the work, her 4 questions, right? And this woman is saying, my husband left for work and he did not give me a hug. He no longer loves me, right? And Byron Katie says, in that moment, in that exact moment, get into a meditative state. In that exact moment, when you were feeling that he walked away from you without giving you a hug, were you a person that was huggable? Right? So a lot of what happens to us is because we are not in a state where we can be loved. That's what Caesar was saying, right? Caesar wrote, every time you feel greater or less than somebody, know that it is the ego in you. So it's something like that. Like, you have to remember, if I want to get a high quality man, am I somebody that a high quality man can love? Do I love myself every moment? Do I love every aspect of myself? If I hate people, if I have hatred towards toxic people, do I love myself in that moment? And you will know that your inner being will say, no, I don't love myself in that moment, because that is a misalignment with our inner beingness. Our inner being, we may say, I don't like toxic people, but our inner being is pouring love because our inner being is aligned with source. our inner being is pouring out love at that person, right? And when you set out the intention, is there a high quality man? Your inner being already is working on already knows of the high quality man that you're going to meet. Right, Caesar? Our inner being is already, source is already, you already put that in your vortex, as Abraham Hicks says, and inner being is already working on it, or it already has it. Now, can you raise your vibrational frequency to that extent where you can meet that high quality man? Right? That's how we pull the experience into the present moment. You were going to say something,
Alignment.
Caesar?
Yeah, I just wanted to say alignment. That's all. Yep, just alignment. Be the change you want to see.
It's all about alignment, vibrational alignment. Any experience, like you may say high quality man, somebody may say, I want money, right? I want abundance. I don't want to struggle financially. Somebody else may say, I want a big house. I like spaces. I don't want to be in huge 8-acre house or something, right? Can you get into the vibrational environment of somebody who can own a 8-acre house, right? So it's something like that. Are we in alignment with what we want, the experience? Because again, I'll go back to Dr. Joe Dispenza, the thought, the amplitude of the thought sends the signal out, and the emotional field will pull the experience in. Are we in that emotional field where we can pull that experience of a high quality man, or a big house, or more money, more abundance, whatever it may be, health? What do we have losses of? Health, the relationships, finances, abundance, right? Material things. Those are the 4 things that people want mostly, right? So it's something like that. I'll go to Patricia. Patricia, you want to say something about it or have questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Fascinating. Loving the discussion today. Taking it in. Oh, April said, and Caesar and you, Poonam. Yes, I've been on the journey experiencing the same questions. And I must tell you, Kimberly, I looked at the same, I mean, it's like, that was my question too, because I wanted to get that super formula that will allow me to just be awesome, because I was so done with suffering. And so I needed the magic. So, I listened, I practiced, I still do. And I went through different approaches. And there was something in what Eckhart says. But it's really not what he says. It's just I wanted to be in the state he's in. I wanted to, because it was so attractive to me. And our mind wants to figure out, wants to know how. We have this answer. So how do I do this? And it's almost like I was collecting information, trying it in. And what worked for me in certain times is listening to Eckhart, just playing his talks over and over. I just didn't know what exactly, but just listening to it while cooking, while doing stuff, to be in that field of presence that I was being in. Because in my life at this time, my husband left me, I had arguments, I had problems at work, just everything seemed to be just falling apart. And no matter how much I wanted to turn it around and make it better and fix it, and it was just not working, because I was not at that higher vibration. So then I tried meditation. I joined this group. I just showed up, like I'm sure what you do too. Yeah, you just, showing up to do certain things. And then in beginning, It's like, when am I going to get results? You know, I'm feeling better. I'm practicing. Where's that perfect man? It's like, it's not working. But just, you already there. Have the feeling that those moments, those blissful moments, you don't need a high quality man. You are all the high quality that you want. You are what you seek. And it's like, it's interesting that we need that second person to really be a mirror. But like Caesar said, once you love yourself, when you feel that incredible love, because you are love, so it's like, then, you know, just magic happens. And it doesn't really have to be a perfect man. It might be just loving what you do, or just enjoying sitting outside and feeling that love. You know, we think it has to be a significant other, because that's, I guess, sometimes the closest when we can get to magic. But once you find it being with you, like being you, I mean, that anything is possible. So concentrating on like, how can I learn to use my higher frequency ability to build, it's like, you want a formula, but you are already it. You are the formula. You are the happiness. You are, it's like, realize, it's like, discover of this. Nothing else there's like no answers, no formulas needed anymore. And I think each one of us gets there, some in different ways, and we can just suggest stuff. I wanted to be loved and accepted, and I was wanting to be a perfect for everybody else, to do what they say, so they just accept me and love me. And I realized that that's not, the more I stay, the more I seek it, the more I can seek it, and that's it. That's gonna be my life, just seeking for it. So I try using the Ho'oponopono. It comes to me, even when you were talking about it, that 4 lines, that all Hawaiian prayer. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I say it to myself. Sometimes I drive in a car or something happens, yes, and my energy seems like, and then I just say out loud, if I'm alone. But if I'm with people, I just would say it in my head. It's like, I love you. Just listening. I love, like, hearing this. And it doesn't have to be another person saying it. It can be you saying it. Just channeling that information. All of a sudden, it's just, it really like washes me through stuff. And I also use what, during one of the workshops, April gave that quick visualization of surrounding yourself with a divine white light, and then putting in some like a dome, protective almost dome, and then like saying to yourself that none of the heavy vibration and energy can reach you, because you know you are surrounded by the divine white light, and only good can come out of it for good to others. And Poonam reminded me about this not so long ago, and then I do it every morning before I enter my office. It's been doing wonders. I can't even begin to tell you how, because I still need to interact with people, with them. And in the beginning, some people were just, they were so scared of me, and that I'm coming, this new person, what am I for? So there was spewing this negative energy, and I thought it was a pouring energy out of me. And I had a little bit of, even though of all my practice, and I tried, I was drained so much. But since I started that visualization quick before I leave my car, I mean, and things, I mean, things has been changing, and I'm not really avoiding them. It's just, you know, they start trusting my energy, and you know, that I'm being consistent, and it's, unfortunately, it takes time, but it doesn't, you know, it just you got to do it. And I think Eckhart, by saying you be in your present body, that's how you raise your vibration, because what happens in this moment, there's no past and no future. You actually are in the present moment in order to feel your body, and the time just disappears, and all the stories disappears. There's no problem, because what problem do you really have in that moment? You are realizing and have gratitude. Oh my God, it's a miracle. I have this wonderful body. I can breathe, you know, I can feel my fingers, and you just feeling life that you are. I mean, everything else disappears. I'm telling you, it's, and I'm sure you experience those blissful moments. So it's just, there's more of it, the sweetness of it. It's just amazing. But something interesting just happened, because as we were all talking about this, and I was listening, I thought of this one page from the Tao Te Ching that also Eckhart talks about. And I knew exactly what I wanted to read. And I took the book, it's lying there, I opened it, and it was exactly the page. I mean, I almost freaked out. It's like I had now a superpowers to open the book on the page that I wanted to read. And let me just quickly read it to you guys, share it. It's very short, it's just one page, but a good traveler has no fixed plans and is not intent upon arriving. A good artist lets his intuition lead him wherever it wants. A good scientist has freed himself of concepts and keeps his mind open to what is. Thus, the master is available to all people and doesn't reject anyone. He is ready to use all situations and doesn't waste anything. He is called embodying the light. This is called embodying the light. And now the third part that I thought of. What is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? If you don't understand this, you will get lost, however intelligent you are. It is the great secret. So yes, that takes all, and being grateful for every experience, just saying in your head, thankful, thank you for all the ego, bad energies coming to you. It's like, thank you. Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for sharing that part from the other tissue.
It was 27. It was number 27 of his.
What is a bad man, a good man's teacher?
Yeah, what is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job?
Fantastic.
I can write it if you want. No, just that's one part, because
Awesome.
however that, yep.
It's beautiful. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Patricia. One of the things that came up to my mind, since we are still talking about Dr. Joe Dispenza's teachings, one of the things that he says in Becoming Supernatural, I think it is in either Breaking the Habits of Being Yourself or Becoming Supernatural, Kimberly, is if you want like relationship, right? You would write the letter R and you would put squiggly lines around it. Like R is has energy. On the left side, you would write down all that you think you need from that relationship, right? maybe like the person should be compassionate, not something as physical appearance, but I want to like he wrote about or he talked about his son Jace, right? Let me see what Jace, if I can find. It could be something like, if it's work related, it could be like freedom of time, freedom of schedule. Like his son wanted to work like contract job. He wanted to lead his team. So he wrote all the things from work, right? And like generic things, not like, oh, I want a blue-eyed person, or I want a 6 foot tall person, not something like that, but something that you could generally say, what do you want from that relationship, right? Somebody who would be kind, somebody who would be who would actually help you out with things around at home, right? So
I think I understand what you're talking about, because I did that for April Fools, because it's been 7 years since I dated.
Mhm.
And I did on April Fools, I was like, what do I want in my ideal man? And I wrote down 13 qualities. So so
Okay,
I kind of understand what you're talking about.
okay.
Some are specific, some are vague, but there are
And now
13 of them.
you gotta have those qualities.
But
Every
Yes.
single one of them.
what you would do is you would write it on the left side. On the right hand side, what you would write is, how does it make you feel when you get this relationship, right? Like, how does it make Jace feel, his son Jace feel, when he would get that job where he was leading people? He could work his own, he was a surfer, so he could, and a brilliant engineer, so he could work his own schedule. He had his own team. He didn't want to work all the time, right? So flexibility in schedule, so freedom, inspired. I'm talking about a job. I haven't done one on relationships, so I'm talking about a job. So you would write the emotions on the right hand side, and you have to feel that emotion in this moment. Like I said, the thought sends a signal out, and the emotional field is the one that will pull the experience into this present moment, right? So if you cannot feel, like I think his was the joy for existence, love for life, right? That's what Jace wrote. And gratitude. Gratitude is, it's the perfect word that Dr. Joe Dispenza uses, is it's the ultimate state of receivership, is gratitude. So if we cannot experience gratitude for every little event that happened to us, no matter how traumatic it was, right? That's
Yes,
what it is all about, is
Yep.
experiencing the gratitude to that. Like every cell of your being needs to experience to the level of your spirit, leave alone your physical body, experiencing gratitude to every cell of your spirit, experiencing gratitude, right? Can we experience that level of gratitude in every
And you're
moment?
taking it one step further, acknowledge the grace in your life. When you sit and acknowledge that grace, I actually did this for the project Next with Tony Robbins. I said and when I did this exercise years back, I would just pick like 2-3 moments that I felt, it was grace. Right now, I said, and I actually couldn't pick a moment that it wasn't grace. I realized that every single time, every single moment at my entire life there was grace in it. And that felt incredible.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that real quick too. Absolutely. So what Poonam is saying is to create the feeling of what you're after, and go a step further than just writing. So finding a handsome man feels like Skittles on a rainy day. Finding a secure man feels like freedom. Finding a secure man feels like, um, ecstasy, things like this, and write the emotions down that are created from what you're after. Because the idea is to trick the brain into believing you already have it. And once you can create the emotions of gratitude of already having that, that is the art of allowing and putting yourself in that mode of receiving what she was talking about.
Believe as if you received it and it will be yours. Right? That was what was written in the Bible. Believe it as if, don't say
As you
you don't
already
have
have
it.
it. As you already have it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that goes a little bit further in the book of Thomas, which I don't believe is in the Bible. But they actually literally give, they lay out the law of attraction in the book of Thomas. So if you ever pick that up, it's pretty precise actually.
So this is what Jace wrote: work from anywhere in the world, make the same amount of money or more. Contracts for 6 months or a year. I think because he was a surfer, he wanted short to work for a little bit, surf, work for a little bit, surf, and love what I do. Right? All of us want to love. So that was his intention. Then the elevated emotion was empowered, in love with life, free, the freedom of schedule, right? Grateful was his. And you have to do the meditation, and that's the intensity we bring, is the level of intention. And I've done it with I didn't even do this work in the way it's written. I just did it because I was doing the meditation. I found a job in February, like the one that I want, the kind of job that I wanted. I wanted to work from home, and I found that job. And I didn't even do the work, like, but I was doing I was doing his tuning into. There's a specific meditation called tuning into new potentials. So I was doing that meditation and his blessings of the energy center. I was doing all the meditations, and it just so happened that it worked. Like, it's a proven method that the emotion is what will pull the experience into the present moment. And why is this person not arriving right now? Because we are not feeling the love ourselves. That's why they're not arriving. Francesca, you want to say something about this and wrap it up?
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. It's my favorite topic, energy, frequency, and vibration. It takes me into the Nikola Tesla and all of that stuff, but I won't go too crazy, just to, for the purpose of time. So your question basically is how to increase your vibrational frequency, right? Your vibration, so that, external energies doesn't penetrate your consciousness, right? And I think it was Caesar that touched on it. And I think everybody kind of touched on it a little bit, because one of the things you wrote about in your question is the fact that when you, I guess, go into, whatever social situation it is, there are people that are, energy vampires that siphons your energy. So one of the things I want to share with you, so, and I'll, go into that. I want to mention quickly is that your vibration was also already in a lower state before you enter that room. And the reason being, it's because let's say all these people are in a room and that's your state of mind. It's a judgmental state of mind. And that in itself, that frequency in itself already lowered your vibration before you even enter that room. And so when you're in that space, you're picking up all of their energy because like attract likes, right? And so, I would say be mindful with judgment. Now, that being said, it's very easy to judge. Like I think Puna mentioned, we were all taught to judge. It's a conditioning actually, and we were trained by our very own egoic state of mind, as well as the external, things that teaches us to judge. And our egoic state of mind trains us to judge because that's how it hides, that's how it hides, and we don't get to look at it and do our inner work, right? The trickster, right? And so because everything is energy, frequency, vibration, everything is vibration, because of that, you cannot, you see, from my own experience and my belief is you cannot fool the universe, because no matter what thoughts you're telling your mind, no matter what you're saying to anybody, because words are energy, thought is energy, feeling is energy. If you're not feeling it, believe me, the universe will know, even at the subtlest level, like the speck of a level. If you're not feeling it, the universe will always know. So that's what vibration is, vibration. So if you look up the definition of actually, vibration and frequency, they're actually two different definitions, because the definition scientifically of frequency is the frequency in which something is, so let's say, for example, an earthquake is a great example, right? Or even thought, if you're thinking, oh, these people are lowering my energy. These people are, ciphering my energy. These people are ciphering. And that's your thought. That's a frequency of the thought. That's what you're vibrating. So it's kind of like an earthquake, when everything, because everything is energy. When you apply energy to anything, even if it's a physical structure, it starts to vibrate, right? And the more energy you put into that, the faster it vibrates, the frequency increases, right? The same physics, I guess, in some way, applies to our inner work. So the fastest way to not become triggered and to, again, is be present, like Eckhart Tolle said in his first sentence, the more consciousness you direct into the inner body, the higher its vibrational frequency. It's because the more present you become through pure awareness, and pure awareness happens through meditation. So meditation is very, very important here, because it gives you the opportunity to be the observer of your mind, and when you become aware of your mind and the patterns and so forth, you become aware of the feeling that these patterns generate. So now you're seeing the relationship between the egoic state of mind and the subconscious programs, right? And the more you understand them, the more you can dive into the root cause of, why am I feeling this way? What's causing this to happen? When you get to that root cause and you dissolve it, you've pierced the veil of what in spirituality, they say you've pierced the veil of your subconscious mind, and you've now dissolved that pain body. When that pain body is dissolved, that's when you can walk into that room, you can be in your love. So here, I'll give you a formula. The formula starts with understanding, and Caesar touched on this beautifully with the examples that he was sharing. Understanding gives rise to empathy. Empathy gives rise to compassion. Compassion gives rise to forgiveness, and forgiveness gives rise to love. Understanding, the beautiful examples that Caesar used, right? You already know these people, right? You know who they are. They're not doing this depth of work that you're doing. They're not even aware. Most people I talk to, they have no clue who Eckhart Tolle is. And they only know Tony Robbins because, well, it's Tony Robbins, Most people have no idea who, like that I talk to, like other than, people that are in my field, our field, right? They have no idea who Dr. Joe Dispenza is. Like today I had the most fascinating conversation with the person she was doing my brain. She was actually doing a brain scan today, right? And we were talking about Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and so forth, right? And, she's a medical profession and, she never heard of him before. So here is the understanding. These people aren't probably likely unaware, right? And they're operating where maybe 80% of humanity is still operating at, unaware, not really doing, inner work the way we are doing inner work and so forth. So of course, they're going to be at a different frequency than you are, at a different vibration, right? So being equipped with that understanding that this is where these people this is where these people are at. How could you not love them? How could you not feel empathy for them? Like I say, feel sorry for them, because it is, how could that, the beautiful thing about us being human beings is we have the ability to feel these things naturally, right? If we allow it, right? So even when you're in a situation that's in a relationship and somebody triggers you, right? Of course, we all trigger, no matter, sometimes it seems no matter how much I'm vibrating here, or where, I'm vibrating, of course, that's the universe will probably send me the toughest lesson, right? To show me that there's still work here that I need to do, right? In order to not become triggered. And this is something I've played with. And I mean, I've played with it actually. I'm going to say this humbly, and I won't say who it is, but I've interfered with other people's vibrational frequency in another country. I do it here in my building because, there is somebody who screams at night, who used to, I should say, scream at night, due to mental health issues. And I used to be extremely triggered when I'm falling asleep and I'm going into that deep sleep and suddenly somebody like makes a random noise. And because when I wake up, I can't go back to sleep no matter what I did. Turns out, I was carrying a pain body. That pain body was all the way from childhood because, in my childhood, I never used to sleep at night because I know about the fact, that we're empath, we can see spirits and experience. So I used to experience a lot of that as a child. And as a result, so I used to see somebody running around the yard every single night. So as a child, I was terrified. And I wouldn't go to sleep because I would watch the shadow run by every single night, right? And what I never realized is, oh my God, my nervous system got programmed, everything got programmed to become triggered. So as soon as somebody made noise when I was sleeping, I would become really triggered. And then every building I move into, doesn't matter where I move, there's always somebody yelling on the top of their lungs, like at 2:00 in the morning. I'm like, oh my God. And so, I'm like, okay, universe, I get it. And then, if I'm falling asleep sometimes and Charlotte goes, oh, mama, I would yell at her. And I used to feel horrific for that. And I would notice, I started noticing, oh my goodness, when I'm in this triggerable type of, when I'm in this state, this is when this person yells at night more. When I'm falling asleep, this is when this person is yelling. I'm like, you know what? This was strategically placed here for me to work on myself. And you know what? It took over a year to do it. But I worked on it. I kept working on it, reprogramming, like Poonam was saying, doing that work, right? Rewiring and doing that self-examination until I got to the root cause, which had to do with that experience I was experiencing as a child, right? And that terror and that fear, it was all wrapped up in there because I was afraid to go to sleep. I was afraid of ghosts. I was afraid, So there was so much fear behind that. And as soon as I caught it, and it dissolved, nothing. I don't yell anymore. I don't, the yelling in the building stops, like everything. It was just like, holy shit, pardon me for lack of a better word, but it was, one of those like, oh my God, moments, right? And so again, it comes down to us, our inner state of being. As long, the key is to keep dissolving those pain bodies, and you can dissolve them with understanding, because when you can understand, when you walk into a room, doesn't matter which room you walk into, and you can understand that, oh my God, in fact, when you get to that state of pure awareness, you won't even think that way anymore. Those thoughts don't even arise. You walk into a room because you're standing in your power, you've self-mastered, right? So you're standing in your power, you're vibrating where you're vibrating at because you've dissolved those pain bodies. And so they're no longer arising, they're no longer attracting that type of experiences to you. So this is a topic I can talk about. Like I said, I can go on Nikola Tesla on it because, I can talk about the 369 and so forth, right? Which is, the key. That's what Nikola Tesla said, right? If you understand the, magnificence of the 369, you would have a key to the universe, right? And the second formula, which I, was gifted to me, I call it, from the Buddha, actually came out of the Nikola Tesla understanding. I channeled him for years because I was obsessed. I'm like, what is this key? What is this key? And turns out, so the 3 represents energy, right? And the 6 is actually comes out from that understanding, because no matter if you are in that state of love and compassion and you have this understanding, because if you understand yourself, all the different arising, all the different, I call it, multiple personalities of the ego and the pain body because we are everything that we see outside of ourselves, right? We have all these different versions of our ego, the Kali necklace, right? Egoic state of mind, and so forth, these different arising, no matter what situation. It's like me, I'm a mom, and one of my greatest work that I did on myself was, I would see like lots of stories of like, this person, killing somebody and that person, and I'm like, what is it that would make somebody? And I thought, what if somebody did something to my daughter, like the old version of me, I would probably do the same thing, and then I started examining that, what would I do something, would I do something horrific to somebody if they hurt my daughter? And you know what I did? That's how I discover that killer instinct. It's in every single one of us. And so I went in there, it took a lot of courage, and it's probably something I shouldn't talk about, publicly like this, but that's okay, because we all have these imprints, all of these imprints. That's what makes us human. It's all a part of who we are. Doesn't mean we act on it or we have to act on it or anything like that, right? It doesn't mean it's something that's, a part of my vibration. My God, no. But but I have to ask the question, would I react that way? What would cause somebody to react that way, or what would cause somebody to do something like that? And it was those what questions, what would cause this person to do this? What is it that's, making that person say, these things, what must have happened in their life to have caused them to behave that way or to act that way or to do what it is that they're doing? That's the question that leads to understanding. And when you can experience that understanding, I mean, to me, as human beings, the being part of us, there is no way on earth you could, have that understanding and not feel empathy. So empathy is a natural arising when you have, that's why it starts with understanding. Empathy naturally arises. And when you start to go in, so now you become present with that situation. So for example, let's say if I'm working on my mom or like forgiveness of my dad or something, right? I go into that person's life as them and I walk in their shoes. As my mom, what was it like, growing up for her? What was her experience? And I go through her entire journey, and knowing what we know now and the help that we have now, the fact that we can talk about this and we're even talking about it, and comparing to, my mom, for example, when they didn't even have internet, let alone, talking, and they were taught not to speak about this, not to speak about their pain, to bury that pain and so forth. So a whole bunch of all the limiting beliefs and conditioning that we've been, liberating, right? Like we've been dissolving, right? They grew up in a different time. So how could you walk in that person's shoe and not have compassion for them? So this understanding opens up the door for empathy. Empathy naturally opens because compassion at that point naturally arises. If you're not feeling compassion, then I'm sorry, I don't know who that is or what that is. To me, there is no not happening once you, again, go through the right channel. So start with that understanding, ask the question. It's about asking the right question. What is it that that's causing this person to behave this way, to act this way, to think this way, to feel this way? What must have happened in their life to have caused this to happen? And then naturally, as you start to sit with that question, again, meditation is the key, right? And you journal. I always tell everybody journal, the pen is like the conducer, it's the, I write everything, right? journal, and you will see naturally that state. And once you start tapping into it, you start to get the feel of what it feels like naturally for that compassion to arise, for that love to rise. And actually, when compassion happens, love naturally happens, because at that point you don't even have to make effort anymore, because forgiveness naturally happens. Because how could you understand at such depth why this person is so stuck in their life? And not only stuck, you get to understand and realize, like, oh my God, they're miserable. Sorry, my alarm. Yeah, they're stuck and they're unhappy. They're suffering. Like, oh my God, they are the ones suffering. How could you not, feel compassion for them? How could you not, fall in love with, like, oh my goodness, not only that, gratitude naturally births within you too, because you suddenly realize, oh my God, I just got the opportunity, that I have the ability to experience this beautiful wisdom, this realization, and all of a sudden you're feeling that overflow of gratitude for yourself and for God or whoever, whatever you want to call, source, that everything by then you're overflowing with gratitude for everything. So it's like this, beautiful spiral of unfolding that happens when you start to ask the right questions. So, again, just remember, keep in mind, the ego mind is very tricky, and it will lower your vibration before it goes into that room, right? And because your vibration is already in that lower state of mind, everything will penetrate you. So the key is to dissolve the pain body, and you dissolve the pain body with understanding. And that other process naturally starts to happen. And when that happens, I guarantee you, the universe, like I said, the universe can feel you. Every speck of you, it can feel you. And so the Nikola Tesla formula, the 369, the 3 is energy, the 6. So when you're having a conversation with somebody and you're with that, equipped with that understanding now about all humans, right? You can have that conversation from no matter who they are, with such love and understanding in your heart. They can feel that. So 6 represents cooperation. So because the words that you choose, no matter what, they will be so high vibrational, they will actually naturally want to cooperate with you. And guess what 9 does? It brings all cyclic existence to an end. So you now have the power to change the energy field, literally. And that's why I say I play with it. You can change somebody's energy field, even if they're in another country. You can play with it, or they're in, the building or outside, It's a beautiful world of energy. I recommend playing with it, but also at the same time, keep doing that beautiful work that you're doing on yourself. And we all go through that phase where you're at right now. I guarantee you, I was there so many times. I was there. Sometimes it felt like years, we all go through that phase, but you know what? You keep doing this work and you will, evolve, right? You will raise your frequency. So I don't know if I covered it, but I think that's probably it in a nutshell. So understanding, practice, daily practice through meditation, and being aware of and me, I play analyst / scientist, right? So that awareness for me, I guess me being that type of personality, I guess, is a gift, because I'm always curious. I'm always asking questions. Like I'm a 50 question person, right? So yeah, practice, practice, come into that state, ask the question so that you can experience that understanding. And believe me, that will unlock everything else for you very, very beautifully, as long as you keep practicing and keep moving in that direction towards your higher self. Yeah, I think that's it for now.
Thank you so much, Francesca. So grateful. Amazing. I love the understanding leads to the empathy, and the empathy that we have. What Eckhart talks about, and if you are at that point where you're reading Portals of Presence, which is this directing attention into the body, you'll come to the point where he says, like, how can we judge their mental illness? It's a mental illness. How can we judge it? The only
Exactly.
response is compassion.
Exactly. And we don't even, by then we don't even have to make effort because it's a natural arising. We had already come into such deep understanding, like
Right.
it's just there. And now you've become present with that vibration of compassion, empathy, you know, all the beautiful thing, love, forgiveness, and you're like glowing it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question, Kimberly? Because we were talking about that, putting yourself in those emotions, like you already did. Kimberly, how would make you feel meeting the high quality man?
They would have to get into, I want to say, because I could read their aura, they would have to get into my mind. And when they do that, and not to say that this has happened before, I can't lie to them. And it's like a truth serum comes out, and it's a weird sensation. And then it's kind of like to meet the high quality man, it would just like erase all the memories of my past relationships.
But how would that make you feel? What's the emotion?
It's like falling in love, but meeting myself. The falling in love, and it's like meeting my other half. So that's a weird sensation. And I'm reading about other books, but it's more or less, I don't need to be near this man to know how he feels. I don't need to, he doesn't have to tell me anything, because all of a sudden I get what he's thinking. I can, it's just because I'm clairsentient, I get images, I get dreams, and it's like, okay, this is kind of crazy. And especially if I don't know the man, and that's the weird thing.
How that
It's
would
like,
make you feel? What's the amount? You just describing the thing, but
I would to describe it in the word, it's like I would feel like home. Like I found my other half, and it's like I feel very safe. I'd feel joy. It's like the joy emanating in me would be reciprocated with the other, with the man. So one day I'll meet him. If I haven't already met him, I don't know.
You were given quite a
And
few
one of the
tools.
things,
Go ahead, Francesca.
yeah, sorry, one of the things that came to mind too when Patricia was asking that question was also, perhaps doing some work on the masculine energy within you. And that's tied to your dad. So on the father figures in your life, going back to childhood. So that's kind of what I felt as well when Patricia was asking that question. So, because all of our healing is about uniting that masculine and feminine energy within us, right? And becoming whole, right? And so forth, right? And so it ties into that depth of work in that regards as well. If the reason you're doing this is because, you want to find a partner, right? Then, I would recommend working on the masculine as well. Energy.
Beautiful. Thank you,
Well,
Francesca.
I do, ever since the pandemic, because my dad's up in age, every Monday night, 7:30 my time, we talk until almost midnight, for 2 years every Monday. And I know my dad better now than I did when I was younger. And it's like, yes, you get your father's lectures and stuff. and dating advice. And I says, okay, well, there's a reason why I've been single for so long. And the advice on he knew, obviously both my ex-husbands, and the father knows best. so yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 2 years with my father, getting to know him. And we do talk about childhood and members and everything. So
Yeah, and the fathers knows best. I want to say that's a limiting belief. That's not necessarily true. Again, our parents, everybody is, comes from this state of consciousness where they're at in their journey, and that consciousness is shaped by their life experiences, right? From upbringing. So, it's shaped by the collective and their personal experiences. So, I'm a firm believer where the Buddha said to question everything. I'm a firm believer in questioning, everything. And I ask those questions again during meditation, right? So ask and you shall receive is my mantra. Ask and you shall receive.
And I just wanted to say, find all them things within yourself first. For sure.
What
Very
you're
important.
seeking in the other person, right?
Yeah, you're looking for outside validation to find your peace and your joy, and you have it all within you.
Yes,
That's
feel
what
the
you're
feeling.
And
Feel
that's
it.
the key.
looking for in a man is
Yeah.
what you hold inside. It's your job to find that, and then everything else will become manifested.
Yeah, dance with that masculine energy of yours, put on some high vibrational music, some frequencies, and go into that state. Allow yourself to feel it and dance. Like I do that. I dance, I do my Shiva dance or, whatever, right? I play Om Namah Shivaya, all the different, have fun with it. And you will raise your vibration just doing that. Yeah, but, allow yourself to experience that, all of it, like Caesar said, right? And watch what happens to your outside world.
I know it's getting late for the East Coasters, so infinite gratitude, Kimberly, for your question, and to all the panel members. April, I know, has stepped away, and Sri Lakshmi, that has been online with us, like steadfast beside us on this path, right? So thank you so much. And it was an incredibly amazing evening. Have a fantastic evening and week, and I'll see you all next week. Much love. Good night. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.